All right, perfect. Well, thank you so much. All right, there we go. So thank you so much for joining. Again, May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and today we have lots of information from our panelists. Um, all right, so we have a full agenda today. We will get started with Lisette Rusa. She has been with in the human services field for more than 15 years. She has a bachelor in psychology and a master's in counseling and psychology. And she's currently the vice president of operations at the Mental Health Association of Central Florida. We also have Nuria Diallo Padro, who is the founder and principal of the Trauma Informed CC, and she has a master's in social work. And we also have Channing Denny, who is with AT&T. She's our lead benefits consultant, and she will be covering the emotional and mental well-being resources. We will have a Q&A at the end, but you are more than welcome to put your questions in the chat in the meantime, and we will cover them at the end of the presentation. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Lisette.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much, Mickey, for having me here today. It's a pleasure to be talking to this amazing group about mental health and all the wonderful services that we could potentially provide and information that we could give you. Like you said, my name is Lisette Bruce. I'm the Vice President of Operations here at the Mental Health Association of Central Florida with over 15 years of experience in the field. I want to talk to you a little bit about our organization. Go ahead, Mickey. The Mental Health Association of Central Florida has been in the Central Florida community for over 76 years. We were established in 1946, originally as the Central Florida Mental Hygiene Society, with our mission was at that time to advocate for mental health in the legal status in the state. As the needs arose in the community and in the state, we started providing direct services, growing our programs into different sections. So we started with our program community, a community program called Connections, where we connect the community with the different resources that they need, primarily mental health, but also any other resources that they may have or need, such as food assistance, legal assistance, financial assistance, you name it. We have a database of over 4,000 providers that we connect the community with. We also have our Guardian Advocate program for individuals that have been institutionalized or Baker Acted, as we know it, in the different mental health institutions. For those adults that don't have the support that they need or cannot advocate for themselves, we provide that advocate for them during the time that they're in the institution. We have online support groups, peer-led support groups, and as well as an outlook clinic where we provide counseling and med management for adults that have no insurance. And all of our services at this time, they're all free. There's no cost to the individual or to anybody in the community to access these services. Next. So as we know, we had COVID-19, as we call it, the second pandemic. COVID was detrimental to a lot of individuals in our community and in our country overall, but we still have not seen the repercussions of COVID as of yet in our mental health status. A lot of the things that occurred during that time when we had shutdowns, a lot of individuals had to work from home, and we had to pivot it in many different ways. It caused a lot of anxiety and depression, and we actually saw those numbers rise during 2020 and 2021. And we're still a year behind with our data, so we still don't see what it's happening now in 2023. But just from experience and for the services that we have been contacted here at the association, I could tell you that we have getting more calls with individuals suffering from anxiety and depression. So we still haven't seen the last of COVID and the repercussions that it has had or it will have in our mental health status. Next. Right now, and like I said, we are a year behind, more than a year behind with our data. We still have not current for the 2022-2023 information, but as of right now, one out of every five individuals worldwide will be diagnosed with a mental health disorder. That's 50% of Americans will meet the criteria for a diagnosis mental health disorder. And the pandemic, like I said, has caused a spike in the anxiety and depression. As you could see the numbers there from 2019 to 2020, and we still have not seen the data, our current data. So there's still a huge concern, and like we call it a second pandemic from COVID-19. Next. Mental health is also a huge concern culturally. We still have a stigma related to mental health overall in the community worldwide, but more so for people of color, Latinos and African Americans, Asian Americans. We are the least amount of individuals that actually seek services in the community. And I could tell you that from the data that we collect here at the organization, on a monthly basis. We see the numbers are less and less when it comes to Latinos, African Americans, Asian, of other cultures aside from white American. They're the ones that we actually look for services the highest. For us Latinos, for example, when we talk about mental health, it's immediately said that we are locals or crazy, right? It's automatically related to that stigma, to that taboo. But mental health is like any regular health. It's like having a headache, having a migraine, having a stomach ache. It's like having cancer. It still needs our attention in every way. So it's easier for us to say, I have high blood pressure and I take medication on a daily basis to be able to control my blood pressure, as opposed to I have depression or I have anxiety and I take medication for that. And it should actually be exactly the same. There should be no problem with talking about how you feel mentally. Your mental health, in all reality, it does affect our physical health for a very big part of our life. Next. So breaking the stigma at work is super important to talk about it. And we have seen an increase now this month more than ever of organizations and corporations reaching out to us to do presentations like this and to go out to their facilities and talk to their employees about mental health. Corporations have realized after COVID-19 how many of their employees actually have had an impact in their mental health, how many of them have actually felt more depressed and more anxious at their work, and having to call out for mental health days, or I have anxiety, I'm overwhelmed, and more employees have gotten through that episodes in those cases. So one of the first thing is to talk about it, in your work site, in your environment, in your with your employers. Talk about it. It's okay to talk about the fact how you're feeling when you're unable to do a job or conduct a job because you're feeling a certain kind of way. There are ways in which many corporations and employers actually could accommodate individuals that are going through a mental health issue. So it's okay not to be okay. That's our motto here at the organization. And like I said before, whites have a higher percentage in receiving services, while Blacks, Hispanics, and Asians have the lowest percentage. Again, that's tied back to that stigma and that taboo that we put mental health in for ourselves and our cultures. Next. So ways to reduce the stigma and create awareness, like I said, is giving employees access to educational resources, these type of presentations that we are doing, reaching out to the different organizations. We have different organizations here in Central Florida, and I know there's a variety group here from different places in the United States where there are resources, there are mental health resources out there in the community. It's just a matter of going out there and seeking those resources. Include mental wellness in your wellness benefits, and I'm sure a lot of the corporations and employers already do so. Encourage a healthy work-life balance, a balance between your everyday life and your work life. And I know it's so easy said than done, right? It has happened to me, and I know that it's difficult to try to put boundaries when it comes to your job and your life. but we have to do it. It's a healthy way for us to be able to function at our work environment. Vocalize leadership support and behavior change. Talk to your leadership, talk to your coworkers, to individuals that are around you that are your support, and continuously track engagement to keep the pulse of the employee morale. Check those employees that are usually one way and not the other, of changes in their behavior, changes in how they interact with other people. Chances are they're going through something at the moment. And it's also very important for us as individuals and professions to make an executive decision of when we're not okay, and to say, at this point, I'm going to take a break. I'm going to take a few days. I'm going to take my vacation, whatever that is, to be able to function. It's okay to do that. So when you come back, you're refreshed and you're energized and you're able to continue your work as you've been doing. Next. So what is mindfulness? Mindfulness is simply put in this and for me in this process, it's not thinking about the past and it's not thinking about the future. It's being in the present moment. It's living the day that you're living in today. You're never gonna know what's gonna happen. The past already passed and you have no control over that. So worrying about things that you have no control over is what creates a lot of our anxiety and our emotions, because you have no control over those things. So just focus on those things that you do have control over and what you can manage, which is the today, the now moment. So it's being in the present time and making a sound judgment to yourself of being in the here and the now. A lot of individuals, and we are all culprits of this, are always thinking of the future, planning, 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 but always stop to think what will happen if I don't wake up tomorrow. What would happen if, unfortunately, I walk out the door and I get hit by a bus? Or if, for whatever reason, something happens to you tomorrow and you're done for in this life, what will happen? So if you're worried about what's going to happen tomorrow, what's going to happen in a month, what's going to happen in a year, you're not going to enjoy where you're living today. You're not going to enjoy this moment. You're not going to enjoy today's presentation, the people you're talking to, the people that you are sharing your moments with. And that's what's important for you to do. That's what being mindfulness means. Next. If you don't get anything else from this presentation, remember the 5 R's of mindfulness. And that's to recognize, to relax, to review, respond, and return. These will talk in the next slide about what exactly they mean. But if you don't remember anything else, like I said, remember these 5 R's, because we tend to always fall back to the beginning, fall back to what we're used to fall back to what our comfort zone is. So the 5 R's of mindfulness incorporated in your everyday will help you go back to understanding and reminding yourself that you have to be mindful today, that you have to take care of yourself. So recognize, be aware of things and thoughts that you have on an everyday basis. See if you have any limited thoughts, eliminate those. If you have any negative thoughts, eliminate those. Create your own dialogue, your own internal dialogue to help yourself create that mindfulness that you need. Catch yourself when you are telling yourself limited beliefs. And our limited beliefs are not only beliefs that you create on your own, but are beliefs that are built by the way you were raised, by your ancestors, by your family members, and in being raised in a Hispanic family, there were many limited beliefs that I grew up with that I just a few years ago realized what those were and started breaking those down. Because it is our responsibility to make sure we break what the generational limited beliefs are. Relax, explore ways to slow down. What are the things that you could actually do that you like to do to put a stop and slow down? I did this presentation as well a few weeks ago, and in the group there was a lady who told me, what you just said couldn't fall home right now or really relate to right now, because she had about 4 or 5 individuals in her family that had just recently passed away, one after the other at a very young age for different reasons. And she said, and they had so many dreams and they had so many plans that they couldn't accomplish. So now I know that I need to live the today and the now and enjoy every day as if it was my last day because you never know what's going to happen. So find what is those activities that help you relax, that help you be in the moment with yourself. Gently review your options and ways that you might respond to difficult situations. Remember, if it's something you cannot control, don't worry about that issue. If it's out of your control, there's nothing you could do. There's no choice or options that you could do at the moment to fix those issues or problems that you're encountering. So just let the course follow itself and you just relax and be in the moment with yourself. So review what are those things that you can control, what are those things that you can actually change. If you cannot change them or control them, let them aside, let them resolve on their own. Practice responding from your deepest, wisest self while letting go of fear and worried about the past or future. Um, Remember, you could say no. The things that you could say no to that it will not benefit you, if they're not going to be in your best interest, you could say no to those things. And the most important thing, most of the time, is in a work environment, right? We tend to always say yes and put ourselves into many different tasks and add too many different things to ourselves. What happens at the end is that you will not be able to accomplish any one task. And if any of the tasks you did accomplish, they're not going to be efficiently done. So be aware of what your limitations are as an individual and as a professional, and be able to say no, I can't. And there's many ways in which you could say no that you're not going to sound selfish or rude to the individual. And return, check in with yourself constantly. Like I said, you'll always tend to fall back into what your comfort zone is. Always tend to fall back into what you know and how you have been raised and the things that you know. And you're going to set your mindset telling yourself, this is how it should be because this is how I was raised. But bring back to your own beliefs and what is right for you as an individual. And always remember, if you're not in this world, or if you're not in that capacity, or if you're not in the role that you're in, what will happen to the world, to the people around you, to your life, to your family. So return and check in with yourself constantly during the process on an everyday basis if you need to. I actually have little sticky notes around my work area, in my home, everywhere that reminds me of how wonderful and powerful I can be. And these are reminders that are helpful. You would think, oh, it doesn't do anything to me. Yes, they do. They're helpful for you to read them on an everyday basis, and it will be just so natural for you to fall back into your mindfulness state. Next. We're going to talk about stress and how stress is actually one of the silent killers for the humanity, for everybody. Stress could cause a lot of different health issues, and you would not even believe how many. It could go anywhere from a common cold, from a headache, a migraine. It could even cause cancer, and it could cause all the other illnesses. It relates to all the illnesses in different ways. The amount of stress that you have can cause you to be vulnerable to your body get attacked by all these physical illnesses. So we're going to talk about the causes of stress and what is stress. Stress is a pressure from outside that makes someone feel tense on the inside. So those things that you can't control, those are the things that are causing you the stress. Because there's good stress and there's bad stress, and we're going to talk about what those bad stresses are. It is the body's physical, mental, and chemical reaction to circumstances that frighten, excite, confuse, endanger, or irritate you. It produces numerous of symptoms which may vary from person to person. For example, my sister, when she gets stressed, she gets red patches all over her body. And that's a physical reaction that she has to stress. When I'm stressed, I get headaches and I get back pain right here on the top of my shoulders. And that's when I know I'm tense and I'm really stressed out over a situation. That's why they can be physical, but they could also be mental, where you could start becoming depressed or anxious about a specific situation. Next. The types of stress, as I said before, we have the acute stress, which is short-lived. It's a short amount of time. It's due to a work pressure or a specific task or project that you have that is due. shortly after, it's going to be short-lived and it ends really quick after that project or that item is already no longer an issue. Symptoms for that type of stress could be headache, back pain, stomach problems, rapid heartbeat, muscle aches, or body pain. Chronic stress is one that is serious, is the most serious out of all those three stresses that we're going to talk about. It could last weeks, months, and even years. It could be a never-ending stress that you may have in your life, and it could be caused by an issue in your family environment, or it could be in your work environment as well. People suffering from this type of stress get used to it, and they even think it's part of their everyday living. I don't know if you guys have ever heard somebody said, I need to have stress in my life to be able to move on and continue to work. And that's just what they're used to. They don't think that there's anything different than that. But it is very harmful to your health. The stress plays a huge role in a person's health. I was saying high blood pressure, chest pains, stomach problems, cold hands, feet, migraines, and increases the chance of blood clotting, strokes, and fatigues. A personal experience that I want to share with you all. About 7 years ago, I think I was at a peak of a stressful moment in my life, and I was diagnosed with fibroids and I had to go through hysterectomy. And at that moment, that whole experience, believe it or not, many women go through it. But for me, at that moment, it was a wake-up call. It was a wake-up call where I needed to stop and I needed to make a difference in my life and how I was handling my life. I was focused on work 24/7 and leaving my personal life on the side. I was not giving it time to balance it out. I was always thinking about the other individual and not my own benefit and well-being. And during that experience, it changed the entire way that I looked at life and my outlook for life, and it was all caused by stress. When I was diagnosed and the doctor told me what it was, she said it could either be you have it in the family, it could be genetic, or it could be stress related. And there's nobody in my family that had it, so it was definitely stress related. So something as simple, well, not simple, but something as common as fibroids for women more than anything was stress related, caused by stress. So it could cause a lot of different health issues, as well as high blood pressure, like I said to you guys, I have as well. Next. And their signs of stress are very easy to detect. Insomnia, so if you're unable to sleep, uh, can't concentrate, have absenteeism, so if you be absent from work constantly, depression, extreme anger and frustration. So you could get outbursts of anger out of nowhere for a simple situation. That's a signs of stress, family conflicts, migraine headaches, and back problems. And these are all could be physical signs. It could be also mental signs. People isolate themselves. There's also some symptoms of isolation. So if you had an individual that's always outgoing and that's always talking, all of a sudden just shuts down, that's a sign of stress as well. The signs of we all process stress in different ways, some internally and some externally. So this would be external um, symptoms that you could actually see in an individual and they could express, such as anger and frustration. But the individuals that shut down and keep it in the inside, that's even worse type of stress because it will come out in a different way physically. Next. Eustress or positive stress, and like I was saying, there is positive and there's negative. Eustress motivates and focuses energy in a specific target or a specific project that you're working on. It's short term, so it's while you are doing that project. It's perceived within the coping ability, so you'll be able to deal with it. It feels exciting and improves performance. It's the good stress that you use to work on a project, work on a task, or finalize something important that you're working on, but it goes away. It doesn't stay with you forever, but it's necessary to help you complete that task or that project. Next. Distress is negative stress. It has the following characteristics. It causes anxiety and concern, can be short or long term, it's perceived outside of our coping abilities, it's unpleasant, decreases performance. And most of the time, this kind of stress, this stress is when you are worrying over something you cannot control. That's why it causes a lot of distress because it's not something that you could actually do anything to change the outcomes. You know, it's there, and if you keep worrying about it, it's not going to go away. So that's why it's a negative stress and it makes you feel uncomfortable in every way, mentally and physically. Next. Stress takes energy away, and stress management replenishes the energy. If you're able to manage your stress, then you're, good to go. But how many people can actually say that they're managed their stress? And, sometimes it's not possible to do so. You have to set a mindful process for your life of diet and sleep and exercise to be mindful and to be able to manage the stress. Make sure you sleep 7 to 9 hours a day every night. I have many, many leaders in my life, many different successful individuals that said I could operate in a 4 hour sleep and I'm good to go. Eventually, those people will fall. There's something in their health that would actually make them stop because they are going through a lifestyle that is unhealthy for them. So it might not happen today and it might not happen tomorrow, but eventually those are the individuals that you will say, unfortunately, they had a stroke or something happened in their life that made them stop and slow down. Diet, eat well, comfort food, don't eat junk food. Make sure that you eat your vegetables and food that is actually going to be healthy for you. Exercise. I don't like to exercise, I'll be honest. So take a walk, anything that you like to do that is enjoyable for you. For me, it's dancing. I love to dance. So if I'm cleaning the house or if I'm doing something even in the office, I'll just stand up and dance because I love dancing. That's my type of way of releasing my stress. And the important thing is to recognize what that is for you and to do it. Stand up, stretch, sitting in front of a computer all the time in front of your desk all the time. Just stand up and stretch, walk around the block if it's possible for you. Next. Preventing, sorry, I have something here. Sorry, preventing or mitigating the effects of stress-related illnesses. So every career, like I said, in our professional lives, causes some type of stress for us and long term or short term. Learning how to put in place those boundaries is really important. Take your time off. If you have PTO, if you have sick time, take those days off. Don't leave it, don't accumulate them and leave them until whenever. I was working at another organization 7 years ago that closed their doors down, and I had accumulated over 240 hours of PTO, which I never took and which were never paid to me. So I completely lost those hours. But in the meantime, I was working myself to death because I thought that I needed to be there 24/7 and that not taking time off was making me look as such a huge professional and successful individual. And what I was doing was harming my own health. So take your time off. It's okay to call your supervisor and say, I need a mental health day. And make sure that you realize when those things are important to you. Support systems. Have people around you that you could talk to, laugh, enjoy with, mindless activities that really all you want to do is enjoy yourself, whatever that is for you. Next. Start investing in your health like you invest in your work. So put yourself in your to-do list. That's what I always suggest in your calendar. Put yourself there, whatever it is that you want to do with yourself, just like you do the meetings and your presentations and tasks and projects. Put yourself there, take a walk, go and eat ice cream, take a spa day, put yourself in your calendar as your to-do list as well. So invest in yourself. It's important for you to take care of yourself. Remember, if you're going to come back to work refreshed, your performance is going to increase. You're going to have more energy to do things that you need to, and you'll be able to focus even better. My husband is one to never stop. I have to be his stop clock behind him, because when he starts something, he doesn't stop. It could be 10, 11 o'clock at night, still working on that one item. And I said to him, if you don't stop now, you're not going to find a solution to that problem. Go, sleep, rest, come back tomorrow, and I guarantee you, you're going to fix that issue. You're going to solve that problem. You're going to find that item you lost. Whatever it is that you're doing, you'll come back with a refreshed mind. Boundaries, like I said before, set those boundaries. This is an important book that you could read as a suggestion for setting those boundaries. And I'm sorry because I think they are cutting the grass right now, and I hope you guys don't hear that. But setting those boundaries are really important. Make sure that you make your leaders understand when does your job begins, when does your job end. I have people that are working 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night, 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. That's not healthy because you're not going to be able to function. And trust me, you'll fall down eventually. Next, accept help. Be aware enough of what your limitations are. That's really important. If your coworkers are around you and they want to help you, that doesn't limit what you can do. It doesn't mean that you're a bad employee. It doesn't mean that you're not capable of doing a job. It just means that you have the maturity enough to say, I need somebody to help me. So that item or that task or that project gets accomplished efficiently and you be able to accept the help from individuals. Like I said, a lot of people put on a lot on their plate and they take everything. Yes, I'll do that. I do this and I'll do the other thing and the other thing. At the end of the day, you're going to end up not doing anything, or anything that you do is not going to be done efficiently. Focus on what you can provide. Like I said, knowing what your limitations are. Understand that no one is perfect. There's not a perfect individual in this world. Believe that what you're doing is the best you can and making best decisions the best way you can. Okay? Set realistic goals for yourself. What are things that you could actually do and don't do? Tell your boss if there's a task or something. I'm sorry, at this moment, I don't think I'm going to be able to do this efficiently as I would like to do it because I have other things in my plate right now. They will understand you and respect you even more if you do that than if at the end you're going to fail all 5 projects that you put on top of yourself. Try mindfulness-based stress reduction, whatever that is for you. Again, everybody is different. I don't like meditation. That's just me as an individual, or play classical music. On the contrary, I like loud music, loud dancing music. That takes my stress away. That's one way that I could reduce stress and be in my mind state. Um, Going outside, being with nature, uh, camping. I love camping. That's one way that I actually reduce my stress as well. Being with my family, reading a book, listening to music. Find what those items are for you and do them. Next. 12 quick mindfulness exercises, active listening. Listen to your body. Listen to yourself. Be in tune with you so that you could recognize and easily be aware of any signs that it may tell you something is wrong. Just like when we are going to get a cold, when we're about to get a cold, for everybody is different. Some of us start getting body ache, or start feeling down, or we start feeling stuffiness or a headache. Well, when we are not mentally well, our body sends signs to us as well. So listen to those. Do a body scan. Mindful appreciation, mindful breathing, eating, focus, listening, moving, walking around, doing mindful observation of yourself, and stretches. So notice those things about yourself. Notice things that change when you are under pressure, under stress, so that you could be aware of those things once you're not in that state of mind anymore. Next. And don't forget to laugh. Most importantly, one of the things that we forgot when COVID hit was that we forgot to laugh because there were so many bad things happening around us, so many sad things happening around us. Many of us lost many people in our lives, friends and families, and we forgot what was laughing. That alleviates the stress. Watch a funny movie, a very silly funny movie. You know, be silly with if you have kids, watch cartoons. I mean, anything that would actually take your mind off of what your everyday life is so that you could be in sync with yourself and just laugh. Mindless laughing is the best of all. Listen to jokes. Be around people that are always joking and that make you laugh, that make you feel good. It actually fights off infections, it boosts your brain's health, it lowers your blood pressure, and it improves your mood. It actually does work. So those are important things that you could do to be able to be mindfulness and as well as reduce your stress. And I think that's the end of my slide, if I'm not mistaken. I want to thank you for being here today, for listening. I probably did a little bit faster, but I was afraid that I was going to run over people's time. But I hope that it helped you in any way, shape, or form. I would have wished to share with you a lot more of personal experiences, but more important than anything, remember you're valuable, remember you're important, and remember if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of anybody else. So do you first.
Thank you so much, Lisette. We are now going to move on to Nuria's presentation. And go ahead, take it away, Nuria.
Thank you. Do I need to adjust my time at all? Would that be helpful?
A little bit.
Okay,
A
got
little
it.
bit.
Hi, my name is Oh, sorry. Hi, my name is Nuria Diallo Padro, and I have a unique background. So not only do I have a master's in social work, I also have an MBA with HR, and I have a master's in vocational rehabilitation counseling, which is a fancy way of saying I help people overcome barriers to education and employment. So I am very present with you, and I was really honored to be asked to speak to AT&T, especially the HACEMOS group, because the reality is that y'all have been in the front lines of the pandemic this entire time, and mental health is especially important with Latino customers that you work with your families and with yourselves. So I really am gonna I'm gonna shift just a little bit about the conversation because the previous presentation covered some of the topics, but I do want to highlight the overall impacts that we're going to highlight today. So shared trauma. What did the pandemic do that has never been done before, or at least not, for 100 years? It really showed that we have a shared trauma and that trauma happens to everybody. You can no longer say it's like an isolated incident and that nobody experiences it. It made it very real. Also, it impacted communication. And guess what? AT&T, communication. That's what y'all do every day, all day. So you guys were really, really affected by this as individuals, as teams, as departments, and across the organization. And so I'm going to highlight how that impacts the family unit as well. The family unit got affected, right? So some of your matriarchs or patriarchs or entire generations might have passed because of COVID or other related issues because maybe they couldn't get care or surgeries that they needed. And so the family unit has been disrupted. Also, social isolation, the reality is that families are a social unit, and so by being isolated it really impacted how we were healing ourselves and each other, but also the relationships that we were building, and depending on the ages that had other detrimental effects. Next. Okay, so I'm not going to go over all of the statistics, but I did want to highlight that any statistic that you pretty much saw about the pandemic, the rates were higher for Latinos. So just keep that in mind. So 25% increase in depression worldwide. So I'm very global minded, so I want y'all to have a perspective. 25% increase worldwide, but when you look at the experiences of youth, they were detrimentally affected because they're a very social being, right? Social development is very naturally occurring. And as well as Latino youth, for example, were over 50% affected, 40% of Latinos were affected. So we can move on, and then I will bring it all together after we highlight these. And then the same thing happened. Anxiety increased by about 25%. Oh, sorry, I typo there, but anxiety increased. And also it affected across every group, right? What's interesting is that you have a lot of programs that support university students, and you're recruiting students for your internships or hiring them as young professionals. And 3 out of 4 of them were negatively affected by the pandemic. A lot of them were displaced, so keep that in mind. And then more than half of millennials reported overwhelming anxiety, right? And so that is a large segment of the working population. And so I just want to give some context to that. Can we move on? Okay, so the social isolation piece I've kind of touched on, but when you talk about that, you also have to recognize that by having social isolation, there was an increase in intimate partner violence, which people have typically referred to as domestic violence. There's a variety of different forms of violence. And so just want to acknowledge that worldwide, it affected 1 in 3 people. And so part of social isolation should not just be considered like you were by yourself, or you were isolated from friends, but also the negative impact that that had for people who were experiencing these kinds of issues. Okay, so now this is where I'm going to dive in to make it more meaningful for all of you, is that through communication, the actual field of communication, whether you did public relations, whether you had to do human resource management and really communicate, what's going on, health benefits, changes to policies, whether it was leadership and having to adapt to a remote workforce if you weren't used to that before, how to communicate and encourage your workforce, recognizing that people now were also caretakers, whether it was of children, adolescents or elderly, right? Because guess what? Latinos love to be part of the sandwich generation where we care for our elders as well as for our children. And so in this industry, all of you were expected to super deliver, right? You had to be present, you had to be on top of all the changes that happened, and you had to be ahead of the game to make sure that it didn't affect the clients or customers that you were working with nationwide or internationally. And so guess what? Part of the reason that we thrive as a unit, as an overall unit, our Latinos have protective factors such as family. So even though we were isolated from some of our extended family, we figured out how to communicate with them. WhatsApp, for example, was something that we love to use across different countries to communicate with each other. We had other ways to engage with our family members, whether it was sending snail mail, care packages, finding, designated family time that you did virtually, or, some people even celebrated their holidays virtually. So they would still each have their like familiar meal, and they were able to do that. So protective factors are really important because they're things that keep you sane and grounded, versus having to deal with the stress. Now, the reality is we also had to deal with reconciling the new family unit. I personally know families that there were 3 generations that died because of COVID. That's really hard. Like you no longer have your matriarch or patriarch, but also maybe the secondary that was like the most valued or like respected person in the family, like might have also like gone, and maybe one of their children or some of their children. So how do you reconcile that in the family unit? And so that's something that if your family has not done that, maybe because of grieving or other traumas, in order to protect your care of your family and your self-care, that's something that you really should be visiting. I mean, the reality is that COVID has been a 3-year process, and all of us have been very hyper vigilant. We've had to figure out how to over communicate, right? Because if we did complete isolation, it would drive us mad. And so really keeping in mind that we've had to kind of compartmentalize some of these things is something that we need to start addressing. And so really making sure and checking a pulse on your family unit, maybe starting to consider what are our new normals, what are our new traditions, what do we want to preserve, what succession plan do we want for our family, what happens to the items that were part of the family history. All of those things need to start coming up in conversations, and I would highly encourage you to consider that for your families. Also, again, communication and engagement has changed. Like we have to have a backup plan, and we already have that in place, right? We have different ways to engage each other, but if you have the opportunity to really have one-on-one time with family, whether it's, going to see each other or, planning a trip, I would encourage you to do so because touch is also a very, very important part of self-care. It helps to create endorphins and all the good things that we feel. So remember that being around your family, if you have the opportunity, still try to do that. Now, a good thing that happened out of COVID was that we found alternatives for services. The Latino Family Unit, as we had previously discussed, doesn't really have a tendency to seek mental health services because there was a stigma attached to it. You didn't want to be seen in the clinic because maybe somebody from church or somebody from another place would see you going there. So now you can do mental health right in your home or on your phone, in your car. I mean, there's so many ways to seek mental health services and even medical services nowadays that you don't necessarily have to put your information out into the public. And it can be a very private thing. So the idea is that you want to still know that there's alternatives. And if you have a family member that you know is still struggling 3 years out, because while we try to act like the pandemic's officially over, it's really not. There's still other, variants popping up, and there's still things that we have to do to protect ourselves. So remember, people are burnt out. People are still scared. People are literally dealing with trauma, depression, anxiety that they have not processed. So if imagine just running, just running for 3 years. I mean, at some point you're going to be exhausted. So you have to keep in mind that there are alternatives. And if a friend is refer them to somebody who can support them, whether it's HR, another family member, the, 988 for the emergencies. But whatever it is, know that there are alternatives that we can use. And so those are some of the things that really came out of the pandemic. Next. And I just wanted to share that these are some of the articles that I had used to kind of put some of those statistics. They vary, and ultimately you want to use the CDC and WHO for some of the stats if you do need them for any other presentations, but I thought maybe some of y'all would enjoy just reading some articles. And that's it. I just wanted to make sure that you understood the family unit is affected from child all the way up through your parents and elderly, those who were retired. And so remember that getting help is not just about yourself, but it's also making sure that your family unit is intact.
All right. Thank you so much for the wealth of information, Nuria. And we are now going to turn it over to Shannon, who is going to give us all the wonderful benefits that AT&T has for us and our family. So, Shannon. Shannon, are you muted? Shannon, if you are speaking, we cannot hear you.
There we go. Okay, I'm so sorry. I think my Teams is really acting up because my video is not working either. So anyway, I know I don't have a whole lot of time, so I'll go ahead and just jump into this and hit some of the highlights of the benefits that we offer here at AT&T. And I think, it's really important right now too, right? Not only just Mental Health Month, but there's a whole lot of changes going on at the company. So I think a lot of us will probably really need to take advantage of a lot of these benefits. So what we would like to talk about today really is there's 3 levels of care that AT&T benefits offer. There's proactive care that we instituted a couple of years ago with Mequilibrium, the resilience building services, that we really wanted to use in a way to address some of the ways to protect yourself in advance of crises happening and stressful situations with work and all of those other items that come up in life. And so if you have not checked out the resilience building services, I definitely recommend doing that. One of the things that's great about it is that it doesn't take a lot of time every day. You can do a variety of different activities. There's a breathing coach, there's mini meditations and different learning tracks that you can do. So check it out. It's all out there on the Benefit Center. EAP then is going to be the next big piece of the puzzle here. So the Employee Assistance Program really is something that we offer that is no additional charge. Resilience building as well, that's no cost to employees. And all employees and your household members are eligible for both of these, Resilience and Employee Assistance Program. So pretty much any kind of a crisis or even just a stressful situation that you may be having, you can call the Employee Assistance Program. And I'll get into a couple details about the different options there. Ongoing care is going to be through your medical plan. So what we're telling employees is to go on to your personal health care team. We instituted that as a front door to your medical care and helping to direct different questions, billing type questions, lots of different services there. But if you need ongoing care with a psychiatrist or long-term counseling, substance use, that would all go through the medical plan. So that's generally either Blue Cross Blue Shield or Aetna. All right, next slide. Your personal health care team. There are some other benefits that we instituted in January of 2023 through your personal health care team. Those are virtual healthcare benefits that, if you're eligible, are at no cost to you. I've heard some really great things about this. So really with the virtual mental health care, and the urgent care and primary care as well, but the main thing I want to talk about here is the mental health care, that you can actually get an appointment really pretty quickly. I had gone on just to check it last week, actually, before this presentation, and you can get appointments usually, if not that very day, the next day. So if it's something that you're eligible for, definitely recommend doing it. There's also LGBTQ plus affirming healthcare, virtual primary care, again, and virtual urgent care. So if you can't get to the urgent care facility, check that out as well. So all of these benefits are available on the Benefit Center. So that's either an app that you can download, or you can go to the web version of it from your laptop or computer. So next slide. Again, supporting your mental health, we already talked about resilience building and EAP. The thing I'll mention about EAP is depending on where you're located, you may be eligible for, everyone receives the Optum Health Services EAP, but you could be eligible for the LIRA EAP if you are in a certain designation. So I would definitely check that out, and gives you a couple of different resources. We don't need to talk anymore about your personal health care team. It is your front door to lots of different benefits, including mental health if you need it. So next slide. Working caregivers, yeah. So this is important just to know also, this is going to be available on the Benefit Center, but emergency backup care, elder care, and different types of caregiving support. Those are also benefits that are provided through AT&T at no cost to you. So check out the backup care and elder care specifically, is really great resources. Next slide. And time off options, just as kind of a tying it all together from what was talked about earlier. There's lots of different ways that you can go about time off. Disability may actually come into play here if you are having mental health issues and need to take time off of work. So just make sure you are aware of that. There's lots of different unpaid leaves. You get, as a manager, there is paid caregiver leave, lots of different types of leaves that you can take in addition to your own time off and unlimited sick time. So just be aware of all the different ways that you can support your mental health if needed, because sometimes there are crises that happen and you might need some time off. So, all right, next slide. I think that's it. All right, you have 3 minutes for Q&A.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
All right, do we have any questions? Anybody, questions, comments, concerns? I know there was a lot of information. So I do have a question for Lisette. How can I stop stress from affecting my sleep? Because a lot of times I find that I'm very, very tired, but I can't fall asleep.
So first and foremost, the most important thing you got to do is remove any technology around you. Definitely take your phone in a separate bathroom or somewhere that is away from you, not next to your nightstand, not next to you. That, believe it or not, does affect your sleep. And there's been studies about that. But also do breathing techniques, breathing exercises, and believe it or not, it does help. I've heard from many people that when they're doing the third deep breathing exercise, they don't even finish it up because they already fall asleep at that moment. So it's doing the deep breathing while you're laying in your bed and also focus on your body at the same time. You could do the relaxation of your body per body parts. So you could start on your feet, then your legs, and start mentally feeling them relaxed. You telling your body to relax individual parts of your body. That would definitely help with the deep sleep or the deep breathing exercises.
Excellent. Thank you so much for the information. We are actually at 1 o'clock, so I just want to thank everyone for joining the call today. We had a lot of excellent information. The panelists have actually put their contact information on the chat, and we also have a quick survey. If you can take that for us, we will greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much for HACEMOS to allowing me the opportunity to host this very, very important topic on mental health awareness. We all know that eventually, directly or indirectly, it impacts us in some sort of way. So I want to thank you all, Nuria, Lisette, Shannon, and also Patricia on the back end to for making this happen for us. So thank you
Thanks for having
all
us.
so much. Enjoy the rest of your
Thank you.
afternoon.